She said it the night before my father left for good. Her voice low enough that it almost blended with the hum of the refrigerator. "Don't touch the photograph," she warned, as if the frame itself could burn. It was the one that hung in the hallway, the three of us standing before the glass house on the day it was finished, sunlight bending against the glass walls like a secret no one wanted to name. I was 16, wet shoes on polished floors, learning to measure silence by the way she looked at me. My father left the next morning, suitcase half zipped, the smell of cologne still hanging in the stairwell. She didn't cry. She just straightened the frame and said, "We don't move things that remember." After that, she avoided the hallway entirely. The photograph stayed there, dust gathering like time around its edges. I used to stare at it when she wasn't watching, trying to see what she feared, a shadow, a flaw, a ghost of something too human. One evening, the light from Whitlock City fell across the picture, and I noticed her eyes in the photo didn't match her real ones anymore. They looked past me into something colder. When I told her, she didn't answer. She only said, "Some pictures finish themselves when no one's looking." That night, I dreamt of the hallway stretching endlessly, lined with copies of that same photograph, each one darker than the last. The next morning, the frame was crooked, and her reflection was missing from the glass. I fixed it, thinking it might stop the house from shifting again. But by dusk, the reflection that stared back wasn't hers or mine. It was waiting, still. After that night, she began moving through the house like someone avoiding her own reflection. Curtains stayed drawn even when the light was gentle, mirrors turned to face the walls. And every sound seemed to stop an inch too early. The photograph remained in the hallway, half covered by a layer of dust that she refused to clean. "Let it fade," she said once, her tone almost kind. "Things that stay clear for too long start telling the truth." I started to believe her. Some mornings, when I passed by, I could swear the image had changed, the slant of her mouth, the shape of the sky, even the space between us. It was never drastic, just enough to feel like memory was rewriting itself. One afternoon, I caught her standing before it, not touching but trembling, her hand hovering in the air. "It's listening," she whispered, eyes fixed on the photo. "It always listens before it decides what to erase." I didn't know if she was speaking to me or the glass. The air in the glass house thickened after that. Doors swelled, floors creaked in perfect rhythm with our breaths. And every night the light outside flickered as though the house were exhaling. I asked her once if we should take the photo down. She turned sharply, her voice small but sharp as glass. "If you take it down, it forgets him. If you leave it, it forgets me." Then she walked away, leaving the hallway in shadow. And I finally understood that the photograph wasn't the memory, it was the argument. By the third week, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The photograph had changed again. My father's shadow was lighter now, barely there, while hers had grown darker, sharper. Like the frame itself was pulling her closer. I told myself it was just the light, but the bulbs hadn't worked in that hallway for months. My stepmother began whispering to it in the evenings, her voice low, steady, as if bargaining. "Not yet," she'd say. "He's still listening." I stopped walking through that corridor altogether, choosing the longer route through the kitchen to avoid it. But one morning, I found her standing on a chair, the photograph taken down, the nail bare against the wall. "It was crooked," she said, though her hands were shaking. "I only wanted to fix it." She set it on the table, face down, refusing to look at it again. "Sometimes the glass remembers more than the people in it," she added, barely audible. That night, I woke to a sound, faint tapping, like someone knocking from inside a frame. When I reached the hallway, the photograph was back on the wall, straight, spotless, and warm to the touch. She appeared behind me, her face pale, her voice a whisper. "You shouldn't have come out." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I realized she was afraid, not of ghosts, but of being seen by whatever looked through that glass. After that night, she changed the locks on every door except the one leading to the hallway. She said the house needed a place to breathe. I noticed she stopped sleeping upstairs, instead resting on the couch where she could see the photograph from a distance. Every morning, she'd glance toward it, waiting for something I couldn't name: approval, forgiveness, or maybe confirmation that she still existed inside it. The glass house had begun to feel less like a home and more like a container. A fragile box of air keeping us and the image from collapsing together. I started hearing sounds that matched her movements, a soft scrape when she stirred her tea, followed by a faint echo from the hallway, like the photograph was imitating her. One afternoon, I caught her standing before it again, holding a small cloth. "I just want to see him clearly," she said. Her hand lifted, trembling, then stopped inches from the glass. "He's fading faster this time." The air between her and the photograph shimmered, bending the light. For a moment, it looked as if the figures inside were moving, her photo self turning slightly toward mine. She gasped, stepped back, and whispered, "It saw me." That night, I found her sitting in the dark, the cloth still in her lap, her eyes reflecting the thin light from the window. "When he left," she said, voice barely a breath, "I told the house to keep him. I didn't know it would take me to." The final night came with no sound at all, no creaks, no hum, not even the breath of wind through the glass. The house felt emptied of air, as if it were holding its lungs for whatever she was about to do. I found her standing in the hallway again, barefoot, her nightdress pale against the darkness. The photograph hung before her, lit by a single trembling beam from the street lamp outside. "It's time," she said softly. Her hand hovered above the frame. "He's almost gone." I told her to stop, but my voice came out thin, swallowed by the silence that followed. She turned to me, her eyes hollow and wet. "Do you know what it means to be remembered wrongly?" she asked. "Every day, it takes one more truth from me." Then she pressed her palm against the glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the photograph began to hum, low, like the sound of wires before a storm. The image rippled. Her reflection inside it turned, facing mine. And then she was gone, not vanished but absorbed, her outline spreading through the picture like ink bleeding through paper. I stumbled back, the air thick and humming, and watched as her face inside the photo softened into stillness. Morning came quietly. The light through the window touched the photograph first, illuminating three figures again: my father, myself, and her, perfectly aligned, perfectly still. Only one thing had changed. In this version, I wasn't standing beside them. I was the one holding the camera. And that's when I understood what she'd meant. Some photographs never capture us, they choose us.